Let me just pull up your research questions again. Are you working on your questionnaire? Is that?
Yes, my question is for the teachers.
Okay. All right, so what do you have here? Okay, so this questionnaire has the purpose of. All right, so what I would recommend here at the beginning, you might introduce yourself and with your name. So introduce yourself, that you're a student here at the university, and that you're working on, kind of describe. Let's see, the purpose is not, and then lead into this. So introduce yourself. Say I'm a student studying or doing research here at the university, and the purpose of my study is to know how teachers use authentic videos. And then you have this information here. Now you have currently the teacher's name and the level. Ask yourself if there's any additional information about the context that you want that you want to know, that you want to include. So, for example, if you want to know how long the teacher's been at that institution, if you want to know the age of the teacher, if you want to know the level of education, hey, think about all the kind of independent variables about this teacher or the context of the class.
I was planning to apply the questionnaires here in the university, so maybe I would add something like related with the program, if it is extension courses of the
right, that could be another thing. So what type of class is it? Extension or
language? What level?
And then what level? Maybe years here at the university or years of experience. It just depends. So any of the information that I would consider like independent variables, I would include here at the top that they could fill out.
Okay.
Okay. And so then after you have this information at the top, I would have just a sentence here giving them instructions. Please answer what you have here. Answer. I would elaborate. Look, please answer the following questions to the best of your ability. Or just a little bit more descriptive question or statement. Let's see, how do you? Okay. So how often do you? You might be able to save space if you just ask how often do you use it, and then give them one line.
Yes, it's better.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
I was thinking because
yeah,
yes,
and
it's
that
kind
way.
of complex.
Yes, and then you can save all the space. What type of? Same way with this, you can probably put, for example, in parentheses, for example, and list out these examples that you have, and then leave one or two lines.
Okay.
And save some space here also. And then question number 3, do you use captions in the videos? I would have another question. If so, how? And then just include 3 lines or so, 4 lines, and where they can describe. So we're changing now a closed question to an open question. Okay. So they could say yes, and then this is how we do it, or they could just say no. What language do you use? Now, so if you ask this question, what do you use captions? If so, how? The how, I think they're going to answer question number 4. What language do you? Because they'll say, I use it here, I use it this way, and I use this language, right? So you have. Now you may ask also after question 3, after you ask how, you might ask another question, why? Why do you use captions? Right, so that they have a rationale that might help, that might provide some additional information. So after question 3, where you ask, do you use captions? If so, how? Question number 4, why do you use captions in videos? And they can answer. Are you planning to use authentic videos? Okay. in the near future, what I would replace this with in the next month.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Well, before I ask why, I might ask how. So, are you planning on using videos? Yes. And if so, how? Kind of like the other question. So, are you planning on using authentic videos, for developing listening comprehension over the next month or the next 4 weeks? If so, how? And then that would be quite this whole question, have some 3 lines or so. And then you could ask why would you use authentics in the class? So just as you ask why here, you could ask why above. Okay. And then, now this is your last question. Would you like to participate in the study? Um, I would elaborate more instead of a yes no. Well, you can be a yes no question, but include: would you be willing to participate in a research study that includes being interviewed, observations, total everything that you're planning on collecting and doing, interviewing your students or recordings. I think about everything that you're planning on doing for your research and list it out specifically. And then they can say yes or no. Yeah. And so I think if you do that and make those changes too, you're going to have enough room. And I would try to limit one to one piece of paper, which I think you can easily do. But if it looks like you have additional space, give them more space to write. So you would just, on the open questions, give them more space to fill it out. So it's one complete sheet, right? And that way it's just easier. You can give them one sheet of paper, and if they need more space, they can write on the back or whatever.
I thought that these kind of questions, the closed questions, would be better for me when collecting the data. But
Yeah, but most of your questions are, do you do this? If so, so they're going to say yes or no. If they say no, they're not going to have any other information. So you just look at it, no, okay, yes, and you need some of this, some of the yes no questions you could ask how and give you more information. But you don't have to do a real thorough analysis. It's just kind of glancing down. You may have like, I don't know, 15 or 20 maybe questionnaires, hopefully. You can look at them. It's a fast analysis. I think a half an hour, you can kind of say, okay, you divide them up and say, okay, these teachers, and you organize it however you want, but you're looking for something really unique, something different, something that you find interesting or different than what you've read about. Maybe what makes them different than the other teachers, and you want to find out why that is or how that is.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously you want to find teachers who are using videos frequently enough for you to actually do your study. And this is another thing too. You're going to be looking, when you do you're applying your questionnaires. Every time you get those questionnaires back, you're going to be looking at it and saying, okay, how am I finding? If you find out that some of the teachers are just not using video, you have to keep looking. You have to keep applying. So think about schools that maybe have the infrastructure, that they have technology, they have projectors, maybe they have internet, maybe they have a computer lab, right? And start there. If you know these schools, if you don't know the schools, then you're just going in and you're you're going to be just finding out at the moment that you're applying this. But yeah, the idea is to find those teachers. So if you're starting here, you're thinking about extension courses, right?
Yes, well, both Fomento and extension courses.
Okay. So I would really just try to apply as many as possible. I really don't know how many teachers are using video. Hopefully more now that we have the actual equipment, in the classroom.
Well, I think, as you mentioned, I should apply maybe 20 or 30, maybe. And I will see the results if there's no, usable.
Keep applying.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, another thing too, as I mentioned up above here with the teacher's name, You may want to include the level, because another thing that you want to consider whenever you're choosing is, do I want to choose two teachers from the same level or different levels? Do I want to choose a teacher that teaches during the week versus a teacher that teaches on Saturdays? Do I want to teach? Do I want to find two teachers that have a lot of experience, or one that has a little bit of experience and another has a lot of experience? So think about all the information that you need to help decide. Right? Help decide, like, what teachers would be the best, and then you can choose. You can make a better informed decision. And at the end of the day, you need to be able to say, I chose these two teachers because of these reasons. Right? So just try to think about that when you're designing your instrument.
Yes, I need to. Well, I have like the ideas.
Okay.
I need to.
So if you can make those changes, you basically have it. Just a few small changes. Go ahead and start applying it. Preferably either this week or the first part of next week. So next week that you have some results that we can sit down and look at and determine which teachers you can observe.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think I will send you this questionnaire.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a.
That's fine. If you want to send it via Canvas, you can send it as an attachment, and I can look at it and give you feedback if you want me to look at it one more time before you send it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't think it'll take that long. You need to think about how you want to apply it. If you're going to go around and wait as they fill it out, or say, oh, I'll be back in half an hour if you can fill this out. Because there are going to be some teachers that don't want to participate. There are going to be some teachers that I don't have time. Yes. And so, just maybe you can get the schedule from the coordinator from each program and figure out, okay, I'm going to go to these buildings, at this time, because there's a lot of teachers there, and you have to plan your attack, so to speak. So. And what else? What other instruments are you considering?
Well, the interview for teachers. Well, after the observation. After observing. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if during the observation I should. Well, I don't know if I can use the one that you mentioned the last week. That the time and.
Like you could be like the activity type and then a description. Yeah, you can do that. Because you're going to be recording too, so you can use that observation sheet to complement with what you have with the recording. But yeah, that's fine. What about your interviews? So we need to think probably about an interview guide that you can use.
Well, I don't have like a guide, not right now, but.
All right. So think about what you can develop for the moment that when you are doing your interview that you can use and refer to make sure that you're asking the questions that you need to answer your research questions. So one thing I suggest is actually putting the research questions in the actual interview guide. So before you start, you remind yourself, okay, what are my research questions? Okay. The second thing I recommend is write out maybe sample questions, general questions that relate to things that you saw while you observed. Okay. Try to avoid questions, just general questions like, what do you do when this happens? Like general questions about their practice. You really want to focus primarily on what happens in the class when you observed. Okay, so try to keep that in mind and not ask a lot of questions about, well, what do you do when this happens? What do you do when this happens? Do you always do that? I mean, most of the questions should be about, I noticed that you did this in class. Why did you do that? Or what was your rationale for using that type of video or using captions in that way? I noticed that you did this, or the student said this. What happened there? I don't understand. What were you thinking there?
So the interview needs to be like after the class, or maybe 2 or
Well,
3
yeah, I
days
think so. I don't see a need right now for you to do an interview before you observe, because you're going to have information from the questionnaire, so you're going to have some ideas about the teacher and their approach using videos. The next thing is to observe what they do, and then with your results from your questionnaire and your results from your observation, you you think about, okay, I need to ask some questions. I have these two data sources, and I'm going to ask some questions because they said this, I noticed this, and I need to ask additional questions to better understand something about my research questions. Entonces, hay que legar, we have to connect the research questions with the results from the questionnaire and what you observed. See? They're all like connected. So the interview is going to an opportunity for you to get really detailed information about what's happening in the class in their own perspective. You want to tie these things together, but answering your research questions.
So for the interview, the questions, I should like write the questions, or maybe just like points. Like
It's whatever works for you. One option is a general question, just to prompt you. Say, okay, I got to ask this question, and then think about all the different sub questions that address that one question.
Okay.
And then you have another general question, and then think about, okay, I'm going to ask that question, but then realize that there's other questions that you have to maybe insert, right, to understand it. So that's one way. Or you could do an outline. You could do like a general concept, and you list out general ideas. Say, okay, I got to ask about this concept. Then I got to ask about this. Okay. If you want to be more detailed, that's fine. But what you want to keep the interview as conversational as possible. So you want to really start off very general. You might start off with, how do you think class went today? Oh, they're talking, and they may mention something about the video. You observe video, and okay, so when you did that with the video and you used captions and the students responded that way, um, is that how you do it? Why did you do it that way? Is that a problem for you? Is that whatever? You start asking questions. So it's really directly related to what happens in class. Yeah, and so the interview guide can be general questions. You can have an outline form. Um, whatever works for you to help prompt you and remind yourself to ask the questions that you need to answer your research questions. One other thing that I recommend is having just a area on your list, on your interview guide, where you list out the question words. So you have what, how, where, why, with whom, and when you are getting ready to ask a question, you glance down and say, okay, I'm going to ask a what question. Based on what I saw, the what question. They answer, and then you say, okay, I'm going to ask a how question. You mark it. You can just tick it off. Okay, how? And you ask how about that same thing, about whatever it is. The idea is that you ask various different questions, content questions, about that one thing, about that one concept, technique, or idea, so that you better understand that one thing. And maybe the teacher responds to the how. Let's say you ask the what, and they answer how. You're listening to them, and you look, okay, they're answering the how, and you just mark it off. Okay. Now I still need to ask why. Well, why did they? Okay, why did you do that? Right? You check it off. So this kind of helps you to say, okay, because you don't want to, for example, at the end of the interview, maybe you ask like all what questions, right? You didn't ask any how questions, any why. So then you're probably missing something. You don't have to necessarily use all of the question words, but you want to try to use 2 or 3 of the question words to get a better understanding of that one idea, that one concept that you're inquiring about. And this is one way of doing it, just kind of prompting you, okay, I'm asking these questions.
Yes, because I'm very bad when interviewing someone.
Okay, well, try that, and really what you think you need, right? That's the whole point, right? So try to have something with you that you can first look at first to prepare. Say, okay, this is, spend a few minutes beforehand thinking about what you're going to ask, what you're going to say, what you're going to do, but then have it there with you. And whenever they're giving you information, remember you're recording this, so you don't have to take notes. In fact, don't take notes about what they say.
Okay, just
You just have your guide here, and I would have space to take notes. Like if they say something and you want to take notes, like to remind yourself to ask later about what they said, then you just put down like a concept, captions in English, and the question mark. And they're talking, and they finished. It's okay. I noticed you mentioned captions, using captions in English. Why do you do that? Talk, whatever. So leave some space for you to take general notes, just kind of, based on what they tell you, but don't feel like you have to take notes about what they're saying because you can do that later when you transcribe. So the question words, maybe an area to take notes. General questions, right? General questions that you can ask to kind of help prompt you, remind yourself, and have the research questions there really close or included there somewhere so that you're always going back to those research questions. Because remember, all of what you're doing, the questionnaire, the observation, and the interview is designed to answer your research questions as fully as possible. So we don't want to lose sight of those research questions. All right. So if you want to come up with something, you want me to look at something with the interview guide, that's fine. You can bring it in or send it to me in Canvas, and I'll look at that. But I would try to apply your questionnaire as soon as possible. Yeah.
I hope to start the next week.
Okay. All right.
So I will send you the questionnaire maybe tomorrow or during the week.
Okay.
The weekend.
And if you can come in like on a Saturday too, is a good day because there's tons of teachers here on Saturday.
Yes.
And one day you can go through and apply to many. And there might be some teachers that work on Saturday, but they also work during the week. So even though you're planning on, for example, observing during the week, if they, you might save time coming on one Saturday and getting all of your, maybe getting all of your questionnaires answered, maybe. Or at least a good portion of them.
Yes.
That way you don't have to run around and try to spend a lot of time trying to get the questionnaires answered.
Yes, it will be.
And also remember that you're going to have to, think about how long it's going to take to answer. So, either get there a few minutes before, like if classes start at 8 o'clock on Saturday, get here around 7:30 or so, or find out when they take breaks, be around and say, hey, do you have a few minutes? Right? You have to kind of, and you can ask the coordinator, of each program and see, do they take breaks? When do they take breaks typically? Or, and so you can try to, because you don't want to just walk in while they're giving class. Yeah, so kind of, be strategic and try to figure out the best way to do that. So you don't waste your time and you don't waste their time. All right, call this. Ceci. You feel all right? And do you have any questions about your literature review, about my feedback?
No, not yet, teacher.
Okay. So if you have any questions too, let me know. We still have time to clean up our literature reviews. Yeah. All right. So hang in there, and if you want me to look at anything before our next tutoring session, that's fine. But try your best to apply this questionnaire, preferably this week or next week. That way you can, hopefully we can start maybe a week before with the data collection.
Okay.
And we still have 2 more weeks after this week, so to officially start the data collection. But if you have everything together before then, you can start before.
Okay. I hope so.
Okay.
Yes,
very good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hang in there.
So see you.
we'll see you next week. And
Next week.
yeah, and again, if you need something, come on by. If you want to look at something, a questionnaire, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you,
All right,
teacher.
see you.
See you later.